Welcome to bringing Jesus back into focus. This is a simple, clearer understanding of the difference between the Jewish religion and their God Yahweh, and Jesus and his source of divine love, which was only love, and Jesus even described God as being only love. So it's pretty straightforward, really. I was born into the Jewish Christian Catholic Church, but by the time of 17, 16, I left because they were saying that Yahweh is the same God as Jesus, and I said, no, that can't be right, because Jesus is only love, and he teaches us to become only love, and Yahweh is obviously a very brutal, vicious God at times. At Jericho, he sends the Jews down to slaughter everyone, steal the silver and gold and brass, kill every man, woman and child, and take all the treasure back to the temple of Yahweh. Well, that can't be Jesus, because Jesus said you can't serve God and mammon to start with, and to kill other children is against Jesus' teachings. He's a pacifist. To murder and steal the land, it's got nothing to do with Jesus. But the Catholic Church and all the churches in the world, all the Jewish Christian churches, they teach that. So I got pretty upset. I'd never bothered about it because I just took Jesus with me when I left, and then I studied Buddhist teachings. He was a pacifist. They both had a clear like-mind experience. So I'm going to show you here, if you're confused about the Jewish Christian religion, you've left the Jewish Christian church you were with, whether it was the Catholic, the Seventh-day Adventists, the Jehovah's, the Mormons, whoever it was, you left it because you got confused by what they were trying to tell you. Oh, here's God in the Old Testament murdering everyone at Jericho with Jesus, because they teach you Jesus is God. And it doesn't make any sense why Jesus did that or God did that, but the Jews were the favourite children of God, so he let them do it. It's rubbish, of course. Jesus is only love. So I'll just quickly explain to you here how Jesus' teachings have been destroyed by the Jewish religion. The influence of the Jewish religion is infecting and poisoning the singular teachings of love of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, who became a spiritually enlightened child. And I'll show you just some simple points. I think I've got 6 or 7 here. They're very powerful points, but you must decide yourself. But you can't deny these points. They're quite obvious. So the Judeo-Christian entanglement. I was born into the Jewish Christian Catholic Church in 1957. By the age of 16 or 17, I realised the Old Testament Yahweh was not the divine source of one perfect love that Jesus was at one with. So I left the Jewish Christian Catholic Church, but took Jesus and his beautiful spiritual way and teachings of love and non-violence with me. I then went across to study Buddhist teachings, as he was a pacifist, just as Jesus originally was, and though 400 to 500 years apart, their spiritual teachings echoed the same spiritual truth. We are all, potentially, children of a divine source of perfect love and spiritual life, empowered only by a loving spiritual life force. We all have 2 bodies or forms with us right now. Our temporary earthly body of material flesh and an eternal spiritual body, as Jesus explained, or a mind or consciousness that is eternal, as Buddha explained. Different terms for the same thing, and they both taught we all reap as we sow in our next life, or karmic consequences will arise, as they both taught depending on our present actions, our words, and our thoughts. They were both spiritually enlightened children of the same source of divine love. They both had the clear like-mind experience. Jesus calls it, if your eye is single, your body will be filled with light. Buddha says if you remove the negativities from your mind, it will reveal your true identity, and it will be a clear light mind of love. Jesus also says it's not the dirt on the outside of your body that's the problem. A dirty body, flesh, that's not the problem. It's what's inside the cup. If there's dirt inside your spiritual mind, that's the problem. That'll prevent you getting to the heavenly nirvanic world and becoming enlightened with love. So Buddha's singular spiritual way developed out of the plural Hindu spiritual tradition, and the singular spiritual way of Jesus from the plural Jewish spiritual tradition. And this one fact can alter your life. if you're a Jewish Christian, and help clarify the poison that's spreading through the Christian churches. There's one fact, that the Jewish God Yahweh is a dualistic God, is why Jesus and his singular spiritual way of love and non-violence got tangled up in and distorted by the dualistic Yahweh God of the Jews and their Old Testament religion. Once you realize there are two different opposing Godheads, both called Yahweh in the Old Testament, then it is easy to untangle Jesus and his spiritual singular way of love and non-violence from the Jewish overlays that have been wrongly put onto him. At the time of Jesus, most religions had a god of war and peace. The Greeks had Ares as their brutal war god, plundering and killing, and Irene as their god of peace. The Romans had Mars as their brutal war god, and Pax as their god of peace. But because they were opposing forces, one being a dark force of death and the other a force of light and life, they each had a separate temple where they would go to offer sacrifices before making war or peace. Different gods, different outcomes. The Jews thought they could have it both ways by simply combining the two opposite gods by the same name, Yahweh, which created a two-faced religion or Godhead. One body called Yahweh, which formed the monotheistic ruse with two heads of war and peace, which turned it into a dualistic religion, cunningly disguised as monotheistic. Jesus simply cut the Godhead of War off the body of Yahweh, leaving only the Godhead of love and peace, and took it to its ultimate spiritual realization of being at one with only love and non-violence and the creative life force of heaven that's only love. That's what he did. He tried to bring them out of it. They killed him. They like to keep that war god. Now all the Jewish Christian churches, you see, this is where they're lying. They're all lying. That's a lie. Yahweh, there's two Yahwehs. The Christian Jewish churches should say, there are two Yahwehs, two gods in the Jewish religion. We only look at the God of love. We don't look at the war god, because all war gods are satanic. That's why Jesus was saying to the Jews, you are children of your father, Satan. He was a murderer and a liar from the start, and you do the lusts and desires of him. He was saying, you're worshipping a war god, stop it. He said that, it's a fact. I'm saying they were worshipping a war god, but all war gods are satanic. So he was correct. So Jesus becomes enlightened because he only moves with love, and suddenly he cleans his mind out. He becomes love, forgive your enemies. Look at his teachings. They're not violent, they're love. Then he experienced the same enlightenment that we can all experience. Everyone in the whole world can experience this by following his way, his words. Jesus warned all the followers of his spiritual way of love and non-violence to never mix this divine source of love with the old dualistic two-headed God Yahweh. He warned everyone, don't mix this up with the old Jewish religion, whatever you do. Jesus said, no man pours new wine into an old wineskin, for it cannot contain the new wine and will burst apart. And you will lose the new wine. You'll lose the understanding of the divine loving God, because you have the dualistic God again. And no one tears a piece of cloth from a new garment and tries to place it onto an old garment, because they do not match, the new with the old, and the new will lift off from the old, and the schism between the two will be made worse. The divine loving creator, she can or he, cannot be Yahweh, because Yahweh is a two-headed God on one body called Yahweh. The divine loving creator of Jesus is only love. The entire consciousness and mind of this creator is love. Jesus himself became a child of love. He said, we've all got this within us. But he had to leave the dualistic religion of the Jews. He tried to bring them out of them, and they murdered him because they want to keep the war god. And then when you mix the new wine in with the old wine, he said, oh wow, that's going to make things really difficult. You're going to make things really complicated for yourself. Mix me in with the old wine and the loving creator in with the Yahweh. You've sort of got three gods circling around, and Jesus, and oh, it's a mess. And you got Satan, the war god. Oh, we're all one. No, they're not all one. So, no two wines, No new wine in old wineskin. Don't put them together in the same wineskin, he said. These two wines. Don't do that. The Bible is one book with one wineskin wrapped around it, but it contains the new wine of Jesus and the loving spiritual creator and the old wine of the Jewish two-headed God Yahweh, together in one wineskin, causing massive confusion and distortions about who Jesus was, the divine loving creator, and his spiritual teachings and way of peace and love. Jesus warned them not to do this, but all modern Judeo-Christian churches do it, and they need to stop doing so right now. Just say, look, we made a mistake, we got it wrong. Sorry, everyone. Stay with Jesus. But we realise now the Jews worshipping two gods. There are two Yahwehs. And then just take out all the good Yahweh bits, put them in a little book, and leave the Jews with their stinking war god. If they want to worship that war god, it's satanic. Okay, that's their choice. The rabbis should do it. I mean, Christian leaders should do it. The rabbis should certainly do it. But you don't even have to look at that religion, just look at Jesus. So these are some of the other points that entangled Jesus and the source of divine love in the Jewish dualistic religion and distorted his spiritual teachings and way of love and non-violence. So these are some of the main points I just quickly put to help you understand, if you're a Jewish Christian, that there's serious problems and they just need to correct them. But you can correct them yourself by using your own mind, your own brain. You don't have to believe anything I say, but I believe this because I've known Jesus all my life as love and non-violence. And I left the Jewish stuff because I saw that was rubbish. I mean, to say that Jesus was Yahweh or Yahweh's the God of Jesus, that's just rubbish. So this is the first thing. This is where it all started going wrong. All early Christians were pacifists, as Jesus himself taught them to be. In 312 AD, Constantine went into battle with his rival to become Emperor of Rome. Prior to the battle, Constantine said he saw a sign in the sky or a dream of Jesus and took it as an omen for him to place the sign of Jesus on his soldiers' shields before the battle. He went into battle, defeating his rival, and it became the first account of anyone killing in the name of Jesus. Do you get it? In comes the satanic Yahweh God. Kill the enemy. Jesus got rid of it. Constantine says, I killed all these people and I'm now emperor. I won the battle thanks to Jesus and his God of love. No, thanks to the Jewish Yahweh God. He's linking Jesus back into the dualistic God. See how he's done it? That's, of course, a satanic thing. He was just a pawn. He soon stopped all persecution of Christians. Oh, that's wonderful. And by 380 AD, Rome had converted to Christianity. Well, that sounds very good. However, the Christian leaders caved in to the secular demands of Rome and allowed all soldiers to be Christians, even though they were killing others in war. There's the first massive destruction of Jesus' spiritual message. And today you'll find Christian padres in the army blessing the troops as they go off to kill. That's a rabbi. It's not a Christian priest. That's a rabbi blessing them in the name, well, to bless them in the name of Jesus to go and kill it is a slander and an insult. But he's actually saying, may the Yahweh, violent God of Yahweh, be with you. The murdering, killing war God be with you. It's a Jewish thing. This meant all Christians were now converted back into worshipping the two-headed God Yahweh of the Jews again, instead of the one true divine source of love that Jesus leads us all to. As Jesus said, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you, pray for those who persecute you, do good to them, and if someone slaps you on one cheek, turn the other to him also, that you may be spiritual children of the divine, loving Creator. The pacifist teaching of Jesus was destroyed and is yet to be reinstated by all the mainstream Jewish Christian churches. They are now all worshipping the two-headed God Yahweh without even realizing it. God's description is this, given by Jesus, this divine source of spiritual life. The love shines on the good and the evil equally, the just and the unjust equally, unless you become like this beautiful source of your spiritual life and just love, don't hurt anyone. Love the sinners, love the saints, equally love them, care about them. If you don't become like that, you're not going to heaven. His words. Gee, that's a high standard. Well, he said, that is the way you have to be when you're a spiritual child. If you want to be an earthly child and you want to be dualistic, then you'll kill and save your own and kill the others. That's Yahweh. This is the second way they destroyed the teachings of Jesus. Around 325 AD, the Christian leaders held a meeting at Nicaea to determine how to present the spiritual teachings and way of Jesus to followers, as differences were growing amongst the various Christian groups. They destroyed one of the main aspects of the teachings that Jesus gave by saying that everyone had to teach that only Jesus was a child of God and no one else could ever be like him. Jesus taught we can all equally be children of the loving spiritual Creator, and even said, "He who believes in my way, the works that I do, he will do also, and even greater than these he shall do." This perversion of the teachings plants a subliminal message that can prevent us fully awakening to our spiritual potential, which is what Jesus actually wanted us all to do. It's one thing to really thank Jesus for giving us this information, that I can be a spiritual child just like him. I mean, thanks a lot. I was so messed up and confused, or whatever, hurting some, loving some. I even wanted to go to war and kill the enemies. This sort of rubbish. He helps save my life, he really does, with his words and his living example of love. His words. But they're perverting the message. No one can be like Jesus. Only Jesus is perfect. Jesus said, become perfect, overcome sin, as I have had to do. We know he was tempted. He overcame those temptations. Buddha, the same thing. Buddha was tempted by Mara. Jesus is tempted by Satan. It's the same thing. Worldly powers, riches, all this stuff. Both these great spiritual teachers, Buddha and Jesus, overcame those temptations to be just a beast of the flesh and not live out of the spirit. And then they both moved into the spirit fully. They both had the clear light mind experience. And here they've already begun destroying that potential in you by saying, oh, you'll never be like Jesus. Oh, but try to be like him. But you're always a sinner. Well, sins can be forgiven. You can become a perfectly loving child. You can. Just follow his words. Make sure your body's healthy. You don't want to have a damaged sort of brain, but from poison and stuff. Alcohol, drugs. Number 3, here's the other way they started to destroy who he was and his message. They then decided to present Jesus as a sacrificial lamb who died on the cross, and only his blood on the cross can cleanse us of all sin to save our lives. Otherwise, we will all be cut off from the heavenly spiritual world of love. If you don't believe that, you're not going to get there, said some Jewish Christian to me. This is a Jewish overlay put onto Jesus from an old Jewish tradition of animal sacrifice of a lamb or cow to cleanse themselves of sin. This is an old ancient Jewish tradition. And what the Gospels, the writers have done, they've made out that Jesus is like those lambs that they murder and the blood cleanses the Jews of the sin somehow. I mean, that's ridiculous, but that's what they used to do. But that was the old days. They didn't know much about spiritual love. So in the 5 Gospels, which includes Thomas, Jesus actually states what really saves you. He states it 17 times that it is his words that will save you. You can count them. Jesus said, "He who hears my words and understands them will not taste death. And he who builds his life on my words, the rock of his words, cannot be overcome by anything in this material world, including death of the physical body." There's only one reference to Jesus supposedly saying his blood cleans our sins away in Matthew at the Last Supper. Matthew most likely added that little ending himself because they were trying to shift his image. Jesus said, "This is my blood of the new covenant," important word that, which is poured out for many, for the forgiveness of sins. Jesus didn't say that. Matthew put that on. The proper meaning of the Greek word covenant means disposition. A disposition. I'm letting go of my physical disposition to show you the new disposition, my new character. The Greek word covenant means disposition, which is defined as the natural qualities of a person's character. He had 2 bodies, remember. He was fully spiritually alive in a spiritual body, still in a body of flesh, like water in a vase. But he had both bodies alive because he connected to just the source of love. Because because that's what your spiritual body is empowered by. Only love, not hatred. If you hate and want to kill something, you've moved into the clay vase. You're just dirt again with the dualistic mind of the human body. You've got to stay in the water of the spirit. So Jesus had two bodies in one, both fully alive. The new spiritual body, after he underwent his spiritual awakening, possessed all the new loving, non-violent qualities or characteristics. That's why he's saying to the Jews, you've heard it said, love your neighbour, hate your enemy. But now, I say to you, because I've found my spiritual body, and it's only love. You've got to come out of this dualistic flesh body. That's what he's saying. So he's got these beautiful characteristics in his spiritual body, and then he expresses it to the physical, which is now also in alignment with the spiritual. It's only love. So the two become at one in purpose. The physical body and the spiritual body become at one in purpose. They just are a conduit for perfect love from heaven to flow through you, through your spiritual body, into your spiritual body, through your physical body, to other children. His body of flesh and blood died, and it released his spiritual body, which is how he appeared briefly to the disciples after his body of flesh died. This is what he meant by letting them kill his body of blood, spilling his blood out. So many can understand we all have two different bodies. That's what he's talking about, the new covenant. Jesus said, flesh gives birth to flesh, spirit gives birth to spirit. Marvel not that I tell you, you must be born again. It is only the spirit that gives life. The flesh profits nothing. There are his words. And I believe him. I believe that. The flesh in the end profit, there's nothing left. It's empty. But your spirit, how much love is in that? How alive is it? Or are you like Putin and Netanyahu and Hamas and all the murderers in the world and all the armies of the world who are murdering and killing? They're not in their spiritual body. Don't you get it? They're in a false identity. Oh, very powerful. They can kill. Sure, bomb, drones, all the rest of it. But they're out of their spiritual body, which is now shrinking into just a tiny little light like this maybe, covered in dark layers of murder and death. When their body of flesh dies, they're in the presence of the divine love. But how much love have they got? Tiny. How much filthy, stinking murder and death have they got? Have they surrounded themselves with their spiritual body? A massive amount. That's when their hell begins. A child of love just walks into heaven. So the flesh profits nothing. We got two bodies. That's the teaching. This teaching that Jesus gave, that we have two different bodies with us now, has been perverted and destroyed by the Jewish Christian churches. Our spiritual body only needs the loving spiritual life force of our loving spiritual creator to have life, while our earthly body of flesh needs earthly foods, liquids, gases to have life. They wrongly teach our body of flesh is the only body we have with us and will rise again from the earth and say that is what happened to Jesus, but they are misleading everyone. That's incorrect. Jesus did not teach that. He taught you've got two bodies right now. Get into the spiritual one before the other one dies. That one does die and there's nothing in it at the end. Get as much love into your body, into your spiritual life from heaven as much as you can, because then you'll pass through the death experience and out filled with love. It's eternal. It's spiritual. So they're misleading everyone. They're telling everyone the wrong thing. They're not even looking at his words. They just ignore it and pretend it's not there. Jesus taught, now this is where he says you've got two bodies. He says it and they all ignore it. They all are whitewash this one. We won't talk about that one much. There shall be two in a single bed. Two people, you might say, beings, two beings in a single bed. You can only fit one being. But he's saying there's two beings in a single bed. One will be taken to be near to, and the word's missing, someone. They've taken it out. And one will be redundant and sent forth. It's of no use anymore. Two women will be grinding at one millstone. Women in those days in their own little home had a little grinding millstone. And one woman could grind some wheat on it or barley or whatever, but two women couldn't use it. Only one woman could. It's only a small millstone. But Jesus is saying there are two women grinding at that millstone. Two beings. You get it? He's telling us all, he's telling you've got two bodies. He's telling you right there. If you're in the kitchen cooking, there's two of you there. A spiritual body and a physical body. Because you love your family, you cook for them, so that all your spiritual energy is coming through of love. But then your body has to do the pots and pans and cook and chop. The two bodies at purpose in one purpose. One will be taken to be near to someone, and one will be redundant and sent forth. Now he gives two other such examples. There's two in a field, and then there's in the Gospel of Thomas, which is why they destroyed it. It's very blatant. It's very obvious. It's very direct. There will be two on the couch. One lives and one dies. That's in the Gospel of Thomas. That's why they had to destroy it, because the truth was there. They've managed to, I don't know, I'm surprised they've left this in. They didn't cut all this out. But they gobbledygook it. They come up with all these crazy ideas. But he's simply saying you've got two bodies. So then the disciples go, he's talking to the disciples about this, he's teaching them about you've got two bodies, guys, you know. So the disciples ask, where, Lord? That's been cut down. The original question would have been, where have they gone, Lord? Where have they gone to, Lord? You know, one goes here, one goes there, one goes here, one goes there. Where have they gone, Lord? And there's only one answer left in the Bible, which is, the bodies of flesh will be where the vultures gather. Your body of flesh is nothing but carrion food when it dies. That's it. There's nothing in it. Jesus has said that. The flesh profits nothing, he said. At the end of all your investment in just the flesh, there's nothing left of it. If you're investing in all the love in your life, there's plenty of that left, because love is spiritual. Do you get it? He's telling you. He's telling you here. So he says the bodies of flesh will be where the vultures gather, but the other answer's gone. It's not there. It's been taken out. Where's the other body gone? Taken to be near to. Near to who? Near to what? It's not there. It's been taken out deliberately. So he's saying our bodies of flesh are nothing more than food for vultures once dead, but the other answer has been deliberately removed as to where the other body of spirit has gone. Remember, spirit gives birth to spirit, flesh gives birth to flesh. We got two bodies. They've cut out the other one. They don't want people knowing about this. Your other body of spirit's gone to be near to someone. It was probably something. It was probably this. I've tried to think of how would he have put that. He's talking about the vultures. Give your body of flesh to the vultures. It's just carrion food. How would he describe what happens to your body of spirit? So I've put in my book, The Gospels of Jesus Unplugged, a new translation. It's published around the world. It was probably something like this. The body of the spirit is where the eagles fly. That dead body of flesh, I'll feed it to the vultures. Where's the other body, Jesus? The one that's been taken to be near to. That'll be where the eagles fly, in heaven, up above. You see? They've destroyed the meaning. They've altered it, distorted it, perverted it. In the heavenly spiritual world of love, to return to be near to our spiritual creator and source of our true spiritual life. Jesus is clearly saying your spiritual body is going to go back to the source of our spiritual life that you have received in this world. It comes from heaven. It's spiritual. It's only empowered by a loving life force from heaven. The more you move into it, the more loving you are, the more spiritual you are, the stronger you are. That's your primary identity. Body of flesh dies, it doesn't matter. That was secondary anyway. You are primary spiritual child of love. Off you go to heaven. The other body, the corpse, the dead flesh, if you end up being a beast of the flesh, a shadow figure, a false identity, a lie to yourself, a murderer, Vladimir Putin, Netanyahu, Israeli armies, Russian army, all these people, Hamas killing, murdering, you've lived out of the flesh. You've based your identity only on flesh and murder. You haven't even used it to love anyone. You murder, kill, destroy, death. And your spirit's almost empty of love. Not only that, but it's covered in these darkness. So they're the two bodies. They don't teach that. They should. They don't. They should. They don't. They lie. They tell you your dead body of flesh that Jesus said, give it to the vultures. They say that body's going to come up again out of the ground at the apocalypse. End of the world when Jesus comes back. That's a lie. Jesus here says, he says, feed it to the vultures. That's worth nothing now. But your spiritual body's different. That goes back to the source of its life. And our physical earthly body, where does that go? To its source. The source is the dirt, the water of the ocean, calcium, minerals, the earth. It's made up of the earth. It goes back to the earth. But our spiritual body is created by a different life force, a spiritual life force. But it's only love, you see. That's all it is. You've just got to be love and you'll go to heaven. The heavenly spiritual world, paradise, nirvana, whatever you wish to call this beautiful other dimension. But there's only love there. No one hurts anyone there. No one can. So 5, this leads into the cover-up that appears in the Gospels about his body of flesh arising from the grave instead of his spiritual body of light, along with him suddenly appearing in a room with the disciples and then just disappearing, which is you can't do in a physical body. We also have this very important clue in John where Jesus appears to Mary Magdalene and Mary goes to hug him, but he says to her, "Do not try to touch me, Mary." Then there's a bit, "For I have not yet ascended to heaven." That's gobbledygook. That's put in there to distract you from the truth that John's actually secretly telling you. John's secretly giving the clue here to you. He puts the red herring in. They had to. That about the doubting Thomas, that's a red herring. He made that up. "Do not try to touch me, Mary." He probably really said, "For I am in my spiritual body only now, Mary, and you can't hold on to me anymore with your physical body of flesh." She will later when she's in her spiritual body, but not at the moment. He's not in flesh anymore. That's what John's telling us. He's doing it secretly because of the trouble of talking about Jesus had a spiritual body. They weren't ready for that, the Jews. So they had to cover it up. Mary was still in the flesh while Jesus was now fully in his spiritual body, empowered only by the loving spiritual life force of our loving spiritual creator. Most likely, the disciples had to hide his dead body of flesh because no one would believe they saw Jesus alive in spirit and would only have to find his grave and decaying body of flesh to ridicule the disciples, call them all charlatans and liars, turning people away from the spiritual truths Jesus taught. And we would have lost all these beautiful truths of love, two bodies, heaven, how to get there. It would have all been lost. So they did the only thing they could. They thought, well, look, we'll just hide his body and say he rose in the flesh, out of the grave, fully alive. And we'll put in a few things, he's showed us his wounds on his body, on his spiritual body, or this new body, or whatever. How could a new body have wounds? Anyway, it's all gobbledygook, cover-up stuff. But the thing is, they did it because the Jews had a tradition of a few really wonderful prophets in the old Jewish religion being whisked away while they were actually fully alive in their body. They were just carried off to heaven, just disappeared to heaven in their physical body. The Jews had a couple of beliefs that a couple of good prophets that happened to them in their stories. So the disciples knew they could sell that story because the Jews already had that story. And they say Jesus is a great prophet, and a lot of people loved him. So obviously he was loved. So that's why they did it. And that's how they could do it. They knew they had a possibility to link it to this old Jewish belief. So that's why that was done. But the churches shouldn't teach that his body rose from the dead, his body of flesh, because Jesus himself said, "Give it to the vultures, there's nothing in it." He said that. About himself too. He rose in his spiritual body, and we all have one, and everyone will. But you're going to be in the presence of divine perfect love. And even I'm a bit sort of worried about that. Perfect love? Well, I haven't been perfect love all the time. But of course, we ready ourselves. We make ourselves ready by trying our best to be loved. Now this is another one, 6. All the apocalyptic sayings in the Gospels attributed to Jesus are false, as in the book of Revelation. As is the book of Revelation. That's false. An apocalyptic Jew has placed these into the mouth of Jesus to service his own agenda, to paint Jesus as the Messiah in Daniel, the old Jewish book, and Revelation, coming again on the clouds at the destruction of the world which he and his God will cause. Matthew is the main ringleader of this and possibly the only one of the 4 originally. But his apocalyptic references about Jesus are shared in the other Gospels to different extents. As we know, they often copied from each other's works. So these things got shared around and say, I'll write that down. I got it from Matthew, so I got it from Mark. I'll write it in. We'll add that in anyway. So it would be easy to see how Matthew's many references to the old Jewish Testament, linking Jesus to the two-headed God Yahweh and the apocalyptic book of Daniel, would help Matthew to superimpose his own agenda onto Jesus as an apocalyptic Messiah. Then he just added some apocalyptic sayings, attributing them to Jesus, talking about how he is coming back on the clouds, as in the book of Daniel, because that was the particular way Matthew decided to present Jesus to the Jews. Or someone's overwritten Matthew's, one of the two. But it's wrong. Jesus was not an apocalyptic Jew. I disagree with Bart Ehrman totally. A very simple example of how this has been distorted and perverted by the writers is seen in Matthew. You can see how it's distorted, how he's perverted it. He has Jesus saying, recorded, "Truly I say to you, there are some of you standing here who will not taste death until you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Truly I say to you, some of you aren't going to die before you see me coming back from the kingdom of heaven." Of course, everyone there did in fact die before Jesus was supposedly coming again, according to Matthew. And it's 2,000 years later and he still hasn't come. He's probably got caught up in a traffic jam. Jesus knew the Jews would eventually soon kill him for contradicting the two-headed God Yahweh. And he was simply telling them that he would soon be killed before many of them died. And he will then go to the heavenly spiritual world. They'll see him going. The ascension. Matthew deliberately distorts this and other sayings and teachings of Jesus for his own apocalyptic beliefs and personal agenda. And that is my belief, and it's clear as a bell, because Jesus is not interested in that stuff. Another distortion to get you to wait for Jesus to return and save you, when Jesus already said, "He who listens to my words and understands them will be saved from death." Waiting for him to return to save you, forget it. You should save yourself by following his words and studying them and being transformed by them, and absolutely being transformed by his beautiful words of love. That's what's going to save you. But if you don't look at his words properly, and these Jewish Christians, churches keep lying and perverting them and distorting them, so you'll never actually really focus maybe. You will a bit. Jesus is love. A lot of people know he's love, and God is love therefore, but then they teach this other war God stuff. They shouldn't do that. So we only need his words to awaken our true identity as spiritual children of our loving spiritual creator, filled with her loving spiritual life force. His words instruct us on how to behave as a spiritual child of love and non-violence, and we just have to be transformed by them and experience the reality of this wonderful awakening that he himself underwent. From the Pope to a simple cleaner, whoever practices his way of spiritual love will all be equal as awakened spiritual children of our loving spiritual creator in the heavenly spiritual world of love or nirvana or paradise, whatever word you want to use. Matthew also deliberately distorts the saying about the net cast into the sea. So we can see on that going and coming. See, that suited Matthew's agenda, to paint him as coming up, the Daniel thing and the cloud thing. It's all rubbish. Matthew also deliberately distorts the saying about the net cast into the sea. Now this is a classic. You can look this up yourself. If you go to the Gospel of Thomas, you'll see the original saying of Jesus there, and you can see how Matthew's perverted it and distorted it to weave it into his agenda of the apocalyptic Jesus coming back on a cloud and causing destruction. He's distorted and perverted the original. And that's why they destroyed the Gospel of Thomas, to get rid of the evidence. But by the grace of Jesus and the divine loving one, it was found. So we can easily see what they've been doing. You can see the proof of it. So we know this because the original is in the Gospel of Thomas, which they tried to destroy, so the distortions they created could dominate the way they presented Jesus and the loving spiritual creator. This is the correct teaching of Jesus found in Thomas. Now this is the original. Jesus said, "A man is like a wise fisherman who cast his net into the sea." A man. He drew it up from the sea full of small fish. Among them he found a large good fish. The wise fisherman then threw all the small fish back into the sea. He chose the large fish without difficulty. Now it doesn't say he killed all those fish or anything. He just put them back in the sea. He didn't need them. He just needed the one good fish. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. That's the original Jesus teaching. Do you get it? Do you understand what he's saying there? Here Jesus is explaining we all have one true, primary, and heavenly, eternal, spiritual identity and body, which is the one good, big fish we must all find within ourselves. But it is mixed in with many other possible inferior identities we may create us for ourselves as our persona. But when we find our true spiritual identity amongst all the other potential identities that we create, based only on our limited knowledge, possessions, I'm a rich person, position in society, I'm the king of something, profession, all these things, they're sort of temporary identity things, but they're not the true, that's not who you are. You're a spiritual child, wake up. So these things are formed from our earthly mind and body of flesh, right? Possessions, position, title, knowledge. But that's not your spiritual body, because they're all the same. Everyone's got the same spiritual body, you see. Do you get it? So once you understand the spiritual body, you've got one, and you find it, and that's the treasure hidden in the field, by the way. The field is the flesh, the treasure is your spiritual body. Find it, Jesus said. So once you find that one, you can dispense with all of these little identities you had, as they are insignificant compared to our one true spiritual identity. But without knowing you are a spiritual child of great love and good love, you may never let go of the little inferior fish and live your life as a little identity, a little persona. Even like Vladimir Putin, look how powerful I am. I can kill anyone I want. I'm big and powerful. No, he's one of the little fishes, but dark, evil, satanic. You certainly don't get those ones. Do you get it? He's not his true identity. Vlad, Netanyahu, Hamas, the whole Russian armies, none of them are in their true identity. They're all living a false identity, a lie. They're all the little identities. They're all avoiding the one big fish. Now Matthew takes that and he destroys it. He destroys it. He deliberately perverts it for his own agenda. Matthew deliberately distorts this saying to fit his own apocalyptic agenda, as we see here, by changing some key words and then adding extra words onto the ending. So this is Matthew's version. Jesus said, once again, the kingdom of heaven. So it's no longer about a personal man. The kingdom of heaven is like a net that was let down into the sea and caught all kinds of fish. Well, he's taken the general beginning of Jesus' stuff, altered it a bit about the man, the fisherman, to the kingdom of heaven. He's altered that. But he's got the other aspects, fishing in the sea, all kinds of fish come up. When it was full, they pulled it on the shore. They. Not the one fisherman. You, me, they. Who are they? They pulled it on the shore. Then they sat down and collected the good fish in baskets, but threw the bad away, good and bad, threw them away. Didn't place them back in the sea, threw them away, but kept the good fish, the many good fish. Not the one good, great fish that's in you and me, no. The many good fish. This is, and then he adds this on totally. Jesus never said this. You can see how it's added on. You can see the dialogue's different. Then Jesus apparently then says, this is how it will be at the end of the age. The angels, who can never do you any harm, by the way, they only love you to heaven, they want to protect you, but these loving angels will come and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the blazing furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. This is how Matthew distorted the original saying and message of Jesus about personal spiritual awakening in the Thomas original version and turned it into an apocalyptic overlay put on to Jesus. It's false. This is how he did it. Firstly, Matthew changes the direction of the teaching from being about a man's personal choices in life, your personal choices to become the one good spiritual child of love in this dualistic world of many personalities that you may be. You choose to be just a loving child. That's the one good fish. You don't need the other personalities. You meet so many people who are so arrogant. I'm a doctor, I'm so arrogant. I'm this, I'm that. I'm rich, I'm very arrogant. They're all little personalities compared to the beautiful spiritual identity that they have inside themselves. So he redirects it away from a personal message to you and me to find this one good thing inside you to the kingdom of heaven. It's about the kingdom of heaven now. It's not about you anymore, you see. Not directly, like Jesus had it directly. Then he changes the types of fish from one large good fish and other less important little fish to the good fish, many, and all the bad fish. That leads him into, he then describes what happens to the good and bad fish at the apocalypse. He's laying on his own words. This is, or someone else has overwritten him. It may not be the writer. Someone's overwritten it though, or he's put it in. All good fish are saved to heaven, while all bad fish are thrown into hell by the angels of God to suffer. This is a stunning display of how the true teachings of Jesus' main message about us all having to search within ourselves, find and awaken into our good, true spiritual identity, the one good fish, being perverted and distorted into a threatening apocalypse scenario with God sending angels who love you to throw bad children into hell instead of saving the bad children from hell, they do the reverse. They're like demons. This is the Godhead of War of the two-headed God Yahweh, of the Jews. Jesus never said this. He was an awakened spiritual child of a loving spiritual creator who cannot harm any of her children, just like Jesus can harm no one, for they are only love, light, and spiritual truth, as I should be and you should be. What he did teach about himself and a loving creator's intentions was, I've not come to judge the world, but to save the world. I came to seek and save those who are lost. See, do you get it? Can you see it? This is an opposite slander. They're slandering him. And the Jewish Christian churches bloody teach this. Oh, I got a bit angry about this. When I started working for Jesus and the Divine Loving One, I thought, blimey, do I have to help you too? I'm just a gardener. But they said, no, but you know we're just love. So you write about it. You've always known that. They're all brainwashed. So there you go. So that's the problem we've got there. Not throw them into hell as Matthew slanders him and our loving spiritual creator, replacing her with the two-headed God, or him. If you call God him, that's fine. I call the divine loving source her, simply because our mothers give birth to us, females give birth, give life. So I see God as female in that sense. But don't worry, call God the Father, because, loving man, loving woman, beyond gender anyway. We just have to use those terminologies because of the way we have language. It's just a language thing. But I like the female aspects are beautiful. Normally, most people would agree, most females are softer than, rock-ape men. I'm Vladimir Putin. I can kill anyone I want. I'm very strong. I'm a gorilla. Whereas the poor woman who gives birth to the son, and then Putin makes him go to war and kill, she's devastated because she loves her son. Putin doesn't care about her son because he's a satanic child, a false identity. So that's the way it works. So the two-headed God of the Jews with one body, and a Godhead of brutal war and death, and a Godhead of love and life, the two-faced God. Now, the book of Revelation, this is the last one I'll be sharing with you, but there's lots of others, but these are the main ones. They're pretty, look at them, they're quite logical. This is a beauty. The book of Revelation is just a load of trash, and you can easily see why. If you know Jesus, if you don't know Jesus, and if you believe the brainwashing, you'll just overlook the obvious. It's like the elephant's in the room, but you don't see it, because they tell you, there's no elephant in the room. The book of Revelation in the Old Testament is the Old Testament book of Daniel. That's what Revelation is. Someone's just copied the book of Daniel and dumped Jesus and the divine loving creator in it, and added a few extra interesting things about the latest Christian churches that were being persecuted by the Jews, so they knew about these churches. An apocalyptic Jew who hates Jesus and the loving spiritual creator has altered and dumped Jesus and the divine loving creator in the middle of a violent and evil event that they both supposedly create to cause massive death and suffering, condemning children all over this earth world who do not believe in them and are doing evil things. It is pure slander and a clever ruse placed by someone who wanted to destroy the nexus connection to the divine loving spiritual life force and heavenly creator that Jesus was at one with, and slander Jesus himself as well. This evil and cunning book with a weird dream sequence describes Jesus as coming on the clouds, as in Daniel, in an apocalyptic destruction, as in Daniel, where Jesus himself unleashes massive suffering on humanity. Did you hear that? The one who comes to stop the suffering is now suddenly causing it? That's interesting. I didn't know he did that. Now, in this evil, slanderous garbage, Jesus and his creator supposedly come and to destroy all sinners. That's the first thing. Jesus said himself, and these are Jesus' words when he was alive, I have come to save all sinners. Suddenly now he's flipped. I'm coming back to kill them all now. Oh, get over it. What a joke. What a laugh. But this is serious. Jewish Christian churches teach this rubbish. Jesus incites wars, so men kill each other. He opens another seal in the holy book up there in heaven where Yahweh, the two-headed God, is. And now, because he's done that, that's going to incite men to kill each other, and he's going to start these killing each other. Wars, kill. He starts that. Jesus taught to love your enemies. It's not Jesus doing this. That's for sure. It's someone else. Then he causes famines, so people starve. He opens another seal in the book of Revelations in the gobbledygook, mysterious psychedelic world of the dream. Jesus isn't there. This is just some weirdo making it out, you know. So he starts famines to starve children to death. Jesus fed the famished people by multiplying loaves and fishes when he was on earth. He fed the hungry. He didn't starve people to death. Do you get it? Is it obvious to you yet what I'm saying? Then he causes grievous bodily sicknesses, sores and things, to cause severe suffering to people. He makes them sick, really sick. Oh, they're in horrible agony. He causes that by opening the seal to make it happen. When Jesus was on earth, what did Jesus do? Jesus healed the sick. Do you get it? Do you see the difference? It's pretty obvious when someone draws your attention to it. He causes earthquakes and fires and burns people's skin with the scorching sun, kills creatures in the sea and so on. You can read it if you want, it's rubbish. This is the satanic, revengeful Yahweh war god, and Jesus is being set up as Satan, the war god, and slandered by making children believe it is truly him, the Prince of Peace and Love, connected to the Divine Loving One, doing all these evil things, and not a satanic war god and Satan, a satanic, being, the war god. Can you see that? I mean, how obvious is that? Black and white, and yet all the Jewish Christian churches brainwash children to avoid looking at the words. Don't compare them to who Jesus really was, will you? Don't do that. Because he sort of changed. He sort of suddenly changed. He's going to kill everyone. And that's okay. That's fine. Jesus does that. And God does that. The God of love and Jesus, they do that. Sometimes they do that. No. Slander. Pure lies, pure evil slander. Don't read this book. Rip it out of every Bible in the world. It's a disgusting disgrace that all the Jewish Christian churches have got this stinking bit of filth in with the Gospels. The Jewish religion, cut that out, put it up on the shelf. Just stay with the Gospels. That's all you need. This Yahweh satanic Godhead of War is being deliberately overlaid onto the Prince of Peace and Love and the Divine Loving Creator. It is a very cunning and devious detour sign at the end of the Gospels to take you right back into worshipping the two-headed God of the Jews in the Old Wine Testament. One is a brutal, evil, murdering Godhead of war and destruction and death, and Jesus is being portrayed here as the special child of this evil, murdering war god, and as being the only holy one who can bring on this devastation and suffering. The war god causes that. Jesus sure doesn't. Dog droppings smell better than this pile of crap. That's my polite way of saying what this is. Another reason why so many intelligent children leave the Jewish Christian churches. That stop teaching two different religions, will you please? Please stop doing that. You might attract more young people back to the church if you just said Jesus was love and God is love. You might have a hope of reviving. They're dying out in Australia. The apocalyptic beliefs of the Jews were adopted from the Zoroastrians in Babylon, which included a Messiah figure coming to save everyone at the end of the world. The Jews adopted that from that's the Zoroastrian belief. They had that before the Jews, and the Jews then adopted it. They just borrowed it. But then now it's become, oh, Jesus is involved in this. The end of this world occurs for everyone when our material body of earth dies, and we come into the presence of our loving spiritual creator in the heavenly spiritual world and universe to reap as we have sown our karma. We all face the apocalypse of our life. It ends when my horse dies and all the feedback from the material world is shut down and I don't receive it anymore, and my spirit leaves the physical body and the earth rolls up because I can't see it anymore, and I'm in my spiritual body and I'm just transported into the presence of the divine loving creator of my spiritual body, soul and spiritual mind of love. The only thing that matters at that point in time, after the death and the pain and the agony passes, is how much love is in me when I come into the presence of a source of pure consciousness of love, who's placed the loving life force that in my spiritual body. Did I live out of that? Or did I become a beast of the flesh, kill and murder, etc.? And that life was diminished down to almost nothing. And I covered myself in dark filth, like the warmongers are doing. That's all that matters then. So if you lived a life of love, you lived out of your spiritual body, your spiritual mind. Do you get it? That's all Jesus is really saying. You've got two different bodies with you. One's dualistic. This thing is dualistic. It's vulnerable. It can become evil even. You can become evil, this mind, but the spiritual mind can never be evil. It's only empowered by one thing, a loving spiritual life force. And if you look at Jesus' words, if you look at his life, if you look at his words that tell you you've got two bodies, I mean, look at his words. Stop listening to the Jewish Christian leaders. They're lying. A lot of the time they're lying. There's a lot of good in the Christian Jewish churches, don't get me wrong. Look at all the charities, whether it's the Seventh-day Adventists or the Jehovah's or the Catholics or whoever it is. They've all got really normally wonderful outreach, charitable works going with volunteers. Beautiful. But that all comes out of Jesus and his connection to love, the loving creator. That's where it comes from. It does not come out of the violent war God of the Jews. So stop saying that Yahweh is the God of Jesus, because only half of Yahweh, or one face or one head, has anything to do with Jesus. And the Jews didn't even know how to wake up. Jesus woke up, as he said. And the Greek word awaken means to arise. So when he says arise, he's also saying to you, wake up to who you really are, rise. Of course, the word Buddha means the awakened one. He found his true identity. Jesus found his true identity. You and I have to find it before our body dies, and then live out of it. It's dangerous, because you'll be a pacifist. But it's okay. Heaven's there. So these are some of the entanglements that have distorted the spiritual truths Jesus gave to awaken us all to become eternal spiritual children of light and love, of our loving spiritual creator while here on earth before our temporary body of flesh dies. You can contact me at jcinfocus@gmail.com, and if you wish to sort of be very hard on me about this or abuse me or something, that's fine. Send me an email about it. But you'll have to explain to me in an intelligent and logical spiritual way why I'm wrong. And it must be based only on Jesus' words. And then if you want to try to bring in this Yahweh War God, you won't be able to do it anyway. But you'll have to find, it'll have to be intelligent. I don't want any brainwashed, stuff where you just believe something that doesn't make any sense at all. That's brainwashing. That's why I'm doing this video, to break you out of the Jewish religion, get away from it for a while. It's got some love in it, sure, no worries. Love your neighbour as yourself, that's all there. But there's some evil stuff. There's a snake in that book. So stay with Jesus. I give my full permission to anyone who wishes to print this or share this, and we'll be happy to send a PDF file of it to anyone in the world who'd like a copy, so you can print it as much as you want. Put it in a book if you want. You don't have to pay me anything. You can, or an article in a newspaper or something, or some new age thing or something. Anything. And this is just a small sample of what's happened. So I'll leave you with that. It's important. I'm really upset. I never bothered about, once I left the Jewish Christian Catholic Church, I like going back to my old school church, because of the happy memories I had as a child with Jesus' love there. So I go, but when they have a mass, right, if I drop in to have a look at the church, to remember my lovely happy childhood days, there's a line in the Christian Catholic stuff where it goes, I believe in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. I never say that. I believe in Jesus and his loving way to heaven. That's what they should say. I believe in the loving way that Jesus gave us to reach heaven. That's what they should say. That's universal. If you start, see, they always try to get you to say, we're the only ones, we're the only ones. Everyone I asked said, oh yeah, we're the only right church. Oh, blimey. Okay. Well, look, I hope this has been of some help. If you bothered to follow it all the way through, of course, they're a bit long, my videos. So, but I just can't stop talking about it. I try to explain it, try to help you wake up. If you're a Christian, stay with Jesus, stay with your church, stay with your Jewish Christian church, but start to bring this talk about this with your own community, your own spiritual community, bring up this topic. This guy on this YouTube, let's have a look at his video. Let's try to shoot him down in flames, or let's try to think, I'm wondering if he's not perhaps right. The Jews, we've been wrong all along. We've been told the wrong thing. The Jews do worship two gods. That makes sense now. I feel better. I feel lighter. I feel closer to God, who's only love. That's wrong. The Jews are worshipping two gods. Discuss it in your church. But don't let the leaders find out. I certainly pray that we all become spiritual children enlivened by the loving life force that comes only from heaven, and that we manifest it through the body of flesh, and we become selfless, filled with love. I'm trying. Hope you do too. All the best.